The functionality of government is enabled by three organs: the legislature, the lawmakers like the Senate and the houses of assembly for the state, and then the House of Representatives. Then there is the judiciary, the ones who are in charge of the application, or sometimes people say the interpretation of the law, the court. We have the Nigerian Bar Association. The legislature are charged with the function of making of the laws. Then we have the executive, the ones who execute what laws have been made by the legislature. So it consists of like the president, his ministers, and at the state level we have governors, commissioners, the police, the armed forces also are members of the executive. These three organs are very important because they oversee the day-to-day function of government. They are the government. But in order for these three organs to perform optimally well without influence, they are supposed to be separated, especially in a presidential system of governance. There are other systems of governance that fuses power between the executive and the legislature, like the parliamentary system. But Nigeria is practicing the American system of governance, so it's presidential. So the executive is supposed to do their thing without getting influenced by either the legislature or the judiciary. Same with the others. That's why there is a separation of power. So that, for example, if the Senate wanted to pass a bill, they will have to vote independently without being influenced by maybe the president or the chief judge or chief justice. But then, having the separation of power, there is also checks and balances. Checks and balances ensures that one organ of government doesn't step out of line, because if an organ of government is not checked, it might start becoming anti-people or undemocratic, or start doing things that are not within its jurisdiction. It could start even going unlawful. So there is a need for each and every organ of government to be checked to ensure that they do not abuse their constitutional privileges. That's why the president can be impeached. So if the president has committed, like gross misconduct, treasonable felony, or whatever it is that the Constitution has considered bad enough for the president to be impeached, the lawmakers, which is the legislative arm, can impeach the president. That's how the president and the executive powers are checked. Also, the legislature, the lawmakers, can pass a bill and then the president will refuse to give assent to the bill. He will refuse to sign the bill into law. The president has a veto power. Also, if the president refuses to sign a bill into law, thereby checking the excesses of the legislature, after a period of time like 30 days in most systems, that bill, as long as it is people oriented, would automatically become law. So there are these checks and balances. So when you check me, I will check you too, so that we'll strike a balance. It exists in presidential systems, more so democratic presidential systems. But when we keep saying Nigeria is undemocratic, it's not just undemocratic. To me, Nigeria is anti-democratic. Nigeria hates democracy because it's not just the politicians or the leaders who are not democratic. Nigerians, the inhabitants of Nigeria, are also largely undemocratic. Now, at the early hours of Bola Ahmed Tinubu's regime, he removed subsidy without, anybody calling him out for it. The houses of assemblies across the countries didn't say anything. The House of Reps, nothing. There's the House of Senate, nothing. He just went on and removed. I don't want to say he removed subsidy because I do not believe in that subsidy thing. He went on and moved the price of fuel from 0 to 10. And there are a lot of things the president Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been doing, and without seeking permission from the National Assembly, he does those things and goes away with them. No checks. He also does not check the others, because when the others don't check you, you do not have the moral standings to check them. So there are zero checks and zero balances in the Nigerian presidential system. There is just separation of powers on papers. The boss of all is the chief executive, which is the president. And so it is also with state governors. So it's not just about the president. Charity begins from top to bottom. As soon as the court, the judiciary, confirmed Tinubu's selection on technical grounds, it didn't take so long before he gave them SUVs, big cars. And then shortly afterwards, Akpabio sat on the floor of the Senate to say that the president has sent them prayers to their mailbox. That means the president has given them some money to flex. So he went on to say, I think Nigerians were organizing a protest. He went on to say Nigerians can go ahead and protest while there will be in their houses watching them on TV. Afterwards, the First Lady made meal and invited the National Assembly to her house for, was it dinner? Maybe dinner or lunch, I don't know. Dinner. This is what happens between the organs of government in Nigeria. No checks, no balances. In fact, The INEC is called Independent National Electoral Commission. It's supposed to be independent. A situation where it is the president who appoints the INEC chairman. You cannot. What do you expect out of such electoral system? But the INEC is supposed to be independent. They are supposed to have a way they produce their next chairman, either by their own commission's election, or maybe there is a ranking arrangement. But here in Nigeria, whoever becomes president appoints who becomes the INEC chairman, and that person will oversee an election that the president, will participate in. So and then it's a spoil system, a system that is characterized by impunity. So what do you expect of such system? That's why I look at those of you who are canvassing for um, voter registration, and I wonder what you want to do with your PVCs if Amopitan Joash was going to be the person that will oversee the elections. Tomorrow, there will be elections in Ekiti State. They already started throwing breads on the street for people to eat. You would see what the outcome of the APC will carry the day, because the INEC chairman was appointed, not just appointed by the APC, has indicated his personality and identity as an APC apologist. What do you expect? Mahmoud Yakubu just arrived in Doha the early hours of today to occupy the position of an ambassador. He was the one that conducted that thing they called election in 2023. So he has been given an appointment as a, thank you, job well done by Tinubu. As if that's not enough. Now Tinubu is even being a step ahead. He's now appreciating a job before it is well done. He just built houses for chief judges, beautiful houses for people who already have houses that live comfortably in. But there are Nigerians who are homeless. If you went to Calabar, there are children they call Colombo boys. They sleep by the roadside. But you're building mansions for people who already have mansions. But you're doing that because after the 2027 election, Nigerians would reject the result and you ask them to go to court. After all, it has been said by even Nigerians that the court is the last hope or the last resort of the common man, which is absolutely false in the Nigerian context. The court is the last resort or the last hope of the politicians. That's why they could eminently ask you to go to court. Now, all these things that happens in the Bola Ahmed Tinubu's regime are never possible with Donald Trump, who is the strongest man in the world. And that's where I will always say the buck stops with the people. The things Donald Trump will never do in America, it's not that he can't do them. It's not that he will not want to do them. It's simply that the people will never allow him do them. In his first tenure, you saw how Americans invaded the White House. But in Nigeria, it's only to rant about it and do absolutely nothing about it. How do you feel when 48 children and teachers were taken from Oyo State into the bush and they've stayed there for over a month, sleeping under the weather? In Borno State, I don't even want to go to the north. A lot of Nigerians are in the bushes under the abuse of terrorists. Rain falls on them, sun shines on them, mosquitoes, if there are reptiles, on them. And the best response the president could give is to build mansions for judges. They don't care about you. They don't bloody care about you. It is you that will have to stand up and care about yourself. Not caring about yourself by praying or fasting or by protesting. They don't use protests in Nigeria. Which of the protests we don't do one thing? Until Nigerians look upon their politicians the way a hungry lion looks upon a goat. All this mess, in fact, we haven't even seen anything yet.